Laura is the co-founder and chief encouragement officer of Light Speaks Loudest. She considers herself a recovering perfectionist and striving anti-racist who has been changed irrevocably by God's love. Laura and her husband, Aaron, live in Denver with their golden doodle pup, Bo. You can find her on Instagram at Laura M. Fooks. When Laura was in middle school, she scoured teen magazines and Christian materials looking for content that was both relatable to culture and true to her faith. And she came up short. But she kept envisioning an authentic resource that was specifically designed to help teen girls thrive amidst a world constantly telling them they're not enough. In 2020, Laura started Light Speaks Loudest to support 13 to 17-year-old girls as they gain the knowledge, empathy, and confidence they need to impact the world for Jesus. Hi, friend. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Good. It's so good to have you on my podcast. Everyone, this is Laura Fooks. She runs a company called Light Speaks Loudest, and we've been friends since college. So I would love you to just start and tell everyone about Light Speaks Loudest and what you do.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Simone. I am so excited to be here. Like you said, you and I have been friends for a while, and we've gone through different projects and entrepreneurship ideas and all of those things. So it's fun to be here to talk about one that came to fruition. So I started Light Speaks Loudest in 2020, but it really had been a dream that was on my heart for a long time. So when I was a teen girl about a decade ago, I really loved getting all of the teen resources I could. I loved reading all the books and checking all the magazines and all of that. But a lot of times I would notice that the resources that were Christian seemed to be really cheesy and the secular stuff was really shallow. And so I was looking for something to meet me authentically in the things that I was going through in my life and the struggles, and I didn't really feel like I could find it. So that's why I started Light Speaks Loudest after all those years, because I felt like there was still a need in that area for really authentic resources to reach teen girls. And so that's kind of what Light Speaks Loudest is about. So now we're known for our subscription boxes, which come out on a seasonal basis and are designed to help teen girls better love themselves, better love others, and better love God.
I love that. It's such a clear vision too. I feel like you explaining it, I get it right away, and I can just hear your passion as you're describing it. Even if we weren't friends, I feel like I still feel your passion. So I love that. I would love if you could talk a little bit about too, or share maybe some examples or stories that you've witnessed with some of the teen girls that have received these boxes. I know you've run, I think, 2 conferences by now. So I'd love you to, if you have any story that stands out, I would love you to just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. So, one thing that comes to mind is that this past year I had the opportunity to share about Light Speaks Loudest with my home church. And we ended up getting sponsors to sponsor boxes for every single middle school and high schooler at my church, which was, first of all, just such a God moment and exciting and really cool to see other people want to participate and want to support the next generation. So I thought that was really special. And one of the girls who is a 6th grader had texted me after she got her, sponsored box and said, "This is amazing." And then she, had reached back out later and just said, like, "These boxes have changed my life." And I was just so blessed to get to be a part of that and to get to share that with her and to know that there are people out there who care and who are also just, hungry for resources, I think is really, really kind of key there. And then, like you mentioned, we had our first conferences just a couple months back, and I had noticed that there's just not a lot out there for teen girls because there's a lot of things that you can find resources wise for women or maybe made for younger kids, but kind of in that in between stage, it's hard to find something just for them. And so one of the moms that I had talked to had said, "Hey, actually, I found you on Instagram and saw this conference and knew that we had to come." And so they came from Wyoming to Denver, a 6-hour drive, to get to come be part of our conference. And it was just really special to get to talk to that mom and her daughter and hear a little bit more of her story and just see how this space where teens can come and learn about God and connect with others is so needed right now.
I love that you say that too, especially with, it makes me think about COVID, right? And just the past 3.5 years, man, it feels like it's just been like, wow, a long time. But especially that period, I can't even imagine being, I mean, it was hard enough being a teen girl, but especially going through something like that, I can imagine how isolating it's been. I would love to, if you could just talk a little bit about that, your experience, if you've heard from some of these teen girls coming out of that period, and how I guess you've adjusted or adapted your materials with the boxes to be able to kind of cater to them in this time.
Yeah, so I think you had mentioned the topic of isolation, Simone, and I think that's something that we've just seen a ton of from everyone, right? From adults to kids to everywhere in between. And something that I kept hearing from our girls was that friendships were really a tough topic. And it was really difficult for people to know during COVID, are we still friends? I don't really see this person anymore. When we come back together, is it going to be awkward? Like, what's that going to be like? So one of the things that we did was we had a theme box around the topic of friendship. So we had a custom study and different tools that really were created to help girls engage their peers and other people their age and just invite them in. And I think that that's something that we all struggle with. And I know you and I have talked about that friendship
Yeah.
looks different at different stages of life, but being able to give girls the tools to really look and think about how can I be a good friend? How can I invite others to do things? And how can I be brave in making friends too? So that was one way that I think we've kind of adapted throughout COVID and just trying to continue to listen to what our girls' needs and how can we, flex to be able to best meet them.
I love that. And something I know too that you did before starting this is you held these groups, right? And you talked to teen girls and kind of asked them what it is they want, what it is they're struggling with. Because I mean, there are those core issues. I feel like, for example, bullying, I know is one thing, you talk about and address with like Speaks Loudest, and there's some of those key things that I think no matter what generation, that will always be difficult to navigate at that age. But I also feel like you have gone beyond that. Like, I mean, I wish there was a class when I was, a teen or a preteen on friendship, because I feel like, yeah, I'm still, I'm 28 and I'm still trying to figure that out. And I know we talk a lot about that and, offline, and we've had these conversations. And I think, yeah, we're just at a point where a lot of people have felt disconnected from that period, and we're trying to figure out, how do we connect again? How do we come back together? What do I have to offer? I feel like, especially as you're going through kind of adolescence, those are such big, overwhelming things to kind of navigate. And oftentimes it can feel like even in your friendships, you're kind of going it alone, and it's sort of like, how do you come together and even have these conversations and encourage one another? So I have so much respect for you. And I love that you decided to really target that age range, because you're right. I mean, yeah, there was maybe 17 magazine. And when I lived in Australia, there was something called J14. And it was just like, it was about like, or Tiger Beat, I think was one of them, if you remember.
Yes.
But it was like, oh, what is Justin Bieber doing this? Like it was just stuff like that. And you're like, well, this is fun, but like, I'm not learning anything about, or it's like you would sneak a copy, maybe your older sister or someone had like Cosmo, and I feel like, well, that's not really helpful for your self-esteem. And, you're seeing all these models and stuff, and it's really easy to compare, and I know, I've also talked about that comparison being kind of the thief of all joy, and it being really something that can be really destructive in your
Mm-hmm.
personal life. So I know too, we've talked a lot about, and we've shared in our entrepreneurship journeys, which I'm super grateful for, that to just have a friend that's been on this kind of similar journey to me. And I would love if you could, yeah, just talk a little bit about the challenges you faced and the hurdles you've come up against. Because I know you don't have a co-founder either, and you don't really
Mhm.
have, you have a lot of supporters, but you don't have this little team that you can share in the victories and losses with. So I'm sure there's some entrepreneurs out there that would love to, and startup founders that would love to hear more about that so they feel less alone.
Yeah, I think you raised such a good point that at every stage of life, but especially as an entrepreneur, it's really easy to feel alone, especially if you're a solopreneur or kind of doing it alone or going it on your own. And while I have the lovely support of many people, like you mentioned, no one else is really right now in the trenches day to day with me. And so being able to kind of navigate that has definitely been a struggle and something that has also been a blessing because I think that God has just taught me so much about who I am and how my value doesn't come from the things that I produce, but because He made me in His image and I'm His child and have chosen to follow Him, that I don't have a value that comes based on if I finish my to-do list or not, because I never do. So that's
Same,
great,
same
but
girl.
but it's been such a relief, I think, and a joy to get to sit with God in that pain and that process and say, okay, I don't know what we're going to do today, God. Like, help me figure it out or help me guide me in this process. And I think, my faith is something that has been really helpful for me going through the journey and knowing that no matter if my business succeeds or fails or makes $1 million or I lose everything, like that doesn't determine my worth as a human. And that has been so freeing for me. And I mean, that we, as entrepreneurs, we also have just lots of things that happen along the way, different mistakes that you make. I know one of my own was that when I first got started, I had totally thought that I needed to do a lot of social media advertising, and that was how I was going to find my audience and build kind of this knowledge about Light Speaks Loudest. And you know, it just didn't work for us. I spent probably a lot more money than I should have on social media ads that didn't end up getting us anything. And I
Yeah.
think it's things like that where you can be disappointed in the moment, but also say, you know what, I still believe in the mission. I still believe that there's a customer out there for me, and I just haven't found them yet, or I haven't found the right way to reach them. And that's okay. It's going to take time. I don't have to be like going viral overnight for my business to matter or to be important or something that has a place in the world.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I feel like too, what is that pressure about? Like going viral and like I don't know what that is in our like culture or society nowadays linked to social media. And I feel like now, like if you, it wasn't that way with, our parents' generation, like you start a business, they're like, what is social media? And now it's almost like, you have to, the number of followers matter that you have, and whether or not other businesses want to partner with you. They really look at it as a key thing. And it's really difficult, I think, to not make that a part of your identity. And so it's so important what you're talking about with your faith, and I'm, a person of faith as well. So I feel like
Mhm.
outside of my business, it's really important to know my value and my worth and to have other things too that I'm passionate about, because it's so easy too running a startup, as I'm sure you can relate to, pour everything into it and it becomes all consuming at times. And it's very easy to confuse that with who I am at my core. But I'm like, no, I love Social Brew. It's my dream. And I never imagined I would be doing this. I'm super grateful for it, but it's not who I am. It's an overflow out of that. So, yeah, I think a lot of people, it's easy to get the two confused. So I love that you made that distinction. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. And I think it even goes back to what we were talking about earlier with comparison being the thief of joy. And, as an entrepreneur, I love, like you, to listen to other podcasts with entrepreneurs and different things that feel inspiring. And sometimes it can be really motivating because you hear, oh, someone like just like me started something and didn't know what they were doing and figured it out or whatever. But sometimes it can also be demotivating because you see their success in whatever short amount of time period and think, oh no, like, should I be there? Like, you get worried, like, oh, we're not at that much revenue. Like, I don't know how we're gonna, succeed. And I think
Yeah.
that instead of focusing on the comparison and saying my business should be like this, even just sitting, like you were mentioning, in gratitude and saying, you know what, I'm really grateful that I get to do this. And if someday I don't get to do it, that's also okay. Like, there's a difference between who I am and who this business is, even though there's a lot of overlap. It's not everything.
Yeah, I would love for you, to talk about that as well, because you specifically focused on self-esteem, with these teen girls. So I would love you to talk about what are the types of conversations you're having with these girls whenever they come to the conferences or you're on other podcasts or what have you, what are some of the things that if you can share, that they're talking to you about, that kind of, it's like, oh, light bulb moment, sparked an idea for, I know you've created studies, Bible studies and things on friendship and things like that. You talk about bullying, you talk about mental health, but I feel like comparison kind of fits into a lot of those things. So it kind of, there's a lot of overlap there. So yeah, love you to share.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of comes up for women or girls of any age is this idea of, like we were talking about, comparison, and alongside that, identity, and understanding, who am I, what are the things that I care about, and how my personality values be the same or be different than the people around me. And so I think that's something that I really try to emphasize with the girls that I work with through Light Speaks Loudest or through my church, or that I meet, is just helping them understand that you can have different values than the people around you, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing.
That
That can
part.
be kind of, yeah,
Sorry,
because I
Anna.
think, especially, oh, no, no. I mean, especially when you are a teen, you think, oh, I should have the same values as everyone around me, or I don't feel like that's as important to me as this thing. Why is that? And I think we can kind of be harsh on ourselves without realizing that it's okay. It's okay to have different values from your parents or from your teachers or even from your peers and your friends. Like, that's okay. You probably will have some shared values, but you also probably will have some that are different. And knowing that for yourself is a really big step in becoming comfortable with who you are. And like we talked about, building self esteem. And for me, I think that part of that conversation has to come back to, who am I? Who did God make me to be? And what is my purpose? And what are the things I'm gifted at? And I think once girls can kind of go down that road a little bit of discovering those things, and they just have so much more joy and motivation to be themselves and not to try to act like someone else or be someone that they're not.
It's so important. And I think it's something that I feel like I've had to go back to as well, as I've gotten older. And I wish that I had sort of a resource like you're providing when I was younger, because you're right. I mean, like, there wasn't really anything out there, and you're just, going to school, and you kind of, it's very easy to feel like you need to blend in. And I think everyone, like for me, moving around a lot growing up, I was just like, okay, I need to assimilate. I need to fit in here. What's the popular thing to do? Like, it's like if you had a different thought than someone else or line of thinking about something, it's like, oh no, I can't share that. I have to just even fake it till I make it kind of thing. And I feel like as you get older, you realize that there's a lot of people that, they've practiced that for so long. And it really is toxic at its core. Like, we really should just be comfortable in who we are. And like you said, who God's made us to be, if you believe in God. And so I feel like that's something that's so core to who you are. So it makes sense why you would infuse that into your business. So that's really great. I know too that you went to business school before you started this venture, and so I would love you to talk about how you feel like it's prepared you to start Light Speaks Loudest, and if you would recommend that route for people before starting a business, and what your thoughts are on that.
Yes. So with my personality, I really like to have everything lined up and know kind of exactly what's coming. And so for me, even though I had this dream of starting a business for, maybe a decade, I didn't really feel comfortable moving forward until I had what I thought was the needed education and mindset around being able to start a business. So yes, I went to business school. I got my MBA. And kind of through that process, I definitely learned a lot of skills that I didn't have before and just a different way to look at things that was different than my undergrad experience or different than my work experience or anything that I had before that. But all that to say, I think that you don't have to have a business education to get started. And I think, that's just not the route for everyone. It starts with knowing yourself and understanding what you need to feel prepared and to feel able and encouraged and excited. And if that's the business school route, then great. And if it's not, I actually think that while going to business school helped me prepare, just like by giving me kind of some set deadlines for thinking about the project that I wanted to do. And like you had mentioned earlier, Simone, getting to talk to different people and see what they would want in something like that. And kind of, if any product could exist to do this, what would it be like or what would it help you with? And that's a great foundation. But I do think that there's so many skills that you can't actually learn in school. When it comes to entrepreneurship, you just kind of have to give it a try and see. For me, I would say some of those skills are negotiation, which I did take a class on and it was really helpful. But when you're actually in the throes of it, is kind of how you, I think, as a person and an entrepreneur, learn how to do it well. And then also just how you recover from making mistakes. I talked about the social media ads earlier, which some people would look at and say, yeah, that was a mistake. That was a waste of money. And although I would agree with that, I also think that it helped me then kind of cross something off my list that wasn't working or kind of figure out, okay, here's a different route that I could go down that might work better for us. And I think all that to be said, I would say for someone who wants to start their own business, I would say, do what you need to do to feel prepared enough, but don't feel like you have to have all your ducks in a row because you're literally never going to. And if you think that everything has to perfectly line up before you're ready, you'll never be ready.
That part too, right there, I feel like people need to hear because you can almost become paralyzed, in your thinking before you, like you said, if you're just waiting for everything to be perfect before you start, you'll never start. And so I really think it is one of those cases. I've said it before, but you really do have to feel the fear and do it anyways. And, take that leap of faith because it's never going to be comfortable. It's never going to be easy, but it will always be worth it. And I promise people that whether, you're going to go through ups and downs, I feel like in this whole journey. And I know you can attest to that. And we're talking about that right now, but I feel like there's so much value in what, like, for example, what I've learned. And you talked about the social media ads and I did the same exact thing. And it's funny because this is why it's so important too to have communities. I know we've talked about creating, a small community of female startup entrepreneurs because I feel like it, when you share that with other people, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I won't try that for me, or maybe I will try that, because each of our businesses are different. And I think that's something starting from a young age that you're really trying to instill in these young girls to say, hey, I may be different to you, but I can still celebrate with you and they can celebrate and vice versa, So I think it's important to learn how to celebrate others that are doing something totally different to you because it's, we're all, there's enough space at the table for all of us, and
Oh,
I think
yes.
business school too, it sounds like it could be a competitive environment, if you don't know who you are, going into it. So I'm sure, what advice would you give to someone who definitely wants to pursue that route before starting a business?
Yeah, I would say definitely do your research on
Mm,
what is going to work for you, what you're looking for in a school. I mean, now there are so many different ways of doing business school. I know a lot of folks who have gone in person and kind of done that 2-year residency in person to study and, meet people and work on their projects and whatever else. The program that I went to was at Indiana University, Kelley School of Business, and I would say it was excellent, but it was so different. We actually had online live classes and then would come twice throughout the program in person to kind of do case studies and meet with people. And it was great, but you kind of have to know what works for you. I had always been in, my previous school experience, like that front row person who like was raising her hand and wanted to know all the things and ask all the questions. And, that can
I
work
was
on
the
an online
opposite of
environment.
you. I was like in the back. Please don't call on me. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So, I mean, a lot of it comes down to knowing yourself. And I think
Yeah.
we have talked a lot about that. And one thing that you said that I think is great to reiterate is being able to celebrate with others too. And if you're in an environment where you can't do that, maybe you need to do some self work, or maybe that program's not the right one for you. And even from like that idea of getting to celebrate with others, you know this about me, but I work with a lot of teen entrepreneurs for Light Speaks Loudest. And, they're still in middle school or high school and still figuring it out and trying to balance everything. And I think that it's really cool to watch them and get to be part of their journey because there's so much learning and excitement. And I learn a lot from them too, even though obviously they didn't go to business school and I did, but I see how they do different things, how they approach the ways that they connect with people on social media, how they package things, like all kinds of things that I've learned from them. That's been really special and fun to kind of have that two-way connection. And I just love supporting teen entrepreneurs, especially whenever I can. So we always include at least one product from a teen business in every box that we make. And I love getting to support them. And we had, a couple like come to our conference and get to sell their things there and just making sure that we're not just celebrating ourselves, which I also think is important, but that we're celebrating and including others along the way.
I love that you're including the population that you're also serving, which I think is very important. I know for my business, I'm not just giving away 50% of the profits, but I'm also, sort of in a sense, like boots on the ground. Like I talk with my nonprofit partners, or I try to on a regular basis. So I know what's going on. I know how to better serve them and support them. And I know how to share their vision with others, so I think it's important to not, disconnect or not, become jaded, I guess. And as you go further along in your business, to think you know it all, because I never claim to think I have it all together or know it all. I'm constantly learning. I know, I can see by you
Same.
nodding, you agree. So, yeah. And I think a lot of our listeners, that can be a breath of fresh air for people just to say, release you of, and we're releasing you, Laura and I right now, of that
Yep.
lie that, you need to have it all together, or you need to know it all, learn it all. And, and then hold it all in. It's like, no, we're constantly learning. We're constantly evolving as people. And it's important to just keep educating yourself, keep talking to the people that you're trying to serve too, and trying to make a difference with. So I love that. And with that said, I would love you. I know you have very strong morals and values. So how do you infuse that into your sort of leadership style, and I guess the culture you want to create with your business?
Yeah, so I think one part of leadership that is often overlooked is how we lead ourselves. And right now, because I work by myself, that's something that I get to do every day. And just think about, what am I doing, and am I living out the things that I say I believe in? And if I'm not seeing those, then maybe like what adjustments can I make, or how can I, pick up something new that might help me with that? Like that has been, I think, helpful for me to have some self-reflection time for sure. A couple of things that I am currently working on. One is taking a Sabbath and being able to take a break and rest just throughout the week. I think as entrepreneurs, especially, but I'm also an Enneagram 3, and I just like to go, 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 and don't really always feel like I need a break, or I don't afford myself that grace to take one. And so it's been helpful to kind of start having a regular rhythm of just disconnecting from work and being able to have some time to intentionally pour into myself with the things that fill me up. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is I'm already kind of starting to have the wheels turning for, what would I need in a next hire, or what am I looking for? And so I've talked to a couple people who are a few steps ahead of me in that. And then also just learning about this thing called the Working Geniuses, which I think I had mentioned to you briefly, Simone, but basically it's a tool that you can use that's partial, like 20% personality, 80% productivity, and it kind of walks you through a team setting for how you can get a project done and find joy and fulfillment in the process. So that's something that has been really fun to explore and get to learn more about too.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like those are very practical things as well. I know Sabbath, yes, we've talked a lot about, and I know for me, I've taken many of personality tests and
Yeah.
everything to learn more about myself and how my communication style and that kind of thing. But I really think, again, it's another thing that you learn as you go, and you adjust your sails, so to speak. So I really think it's something that, we're constantly learning and growing and in process of, okay, maybe what I needed a year ago is not what I need right now, and so like really checking in with yourself, and checking in with those around you, to make sure, sometimes I'll be on a call and it's like, maybe to me, I'm like, am I even making sense right now? So it's like,
Yep.
I'll just check in and be like, and ask people like, oh, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Did I communicate that well? Making sure you're really understanding people so that you can get to your goals together, and also encouraging other people. I know for me, a lot of the consultants I work with, it's important for me too to tell them that I value them, from time to time, and just say like, we are like, it's sort of like you're assembling your own team before you maybe have that, kind of clear cut team in the future. So that's amazing. And with that said too, I would love to hear, are there any, upcoming exciting projects or things that you're planning or dreaming about?
Ooh, well, I'm always dreaming about something. And sometimes those things come to fruition and sometimes they don't. But one thing that I'm really excited about is that next week, actually, we're going to be having our first ever official brand photo shoot for Light Speaks Loudest. So, yeah, we've done some informal ones and kind of, I've, pulled different girls I know aside to have them participate, but to be able to kind of put pen to paper in a photography sense to really think about what we want to be as a brand and what we want to portray and what we want to aim for, I think is really fun. So that's something I'm excited about. And then we have a couple changes and fun growth things that will be coming to the business later this year and in 2024. I can't share too much yet, but one
Ooh.
thing that is fun is just thinking about how discipleship can happen or mentorship among younger populations. So, something that I'm working on right now is helping kind of older generations who are interested in pouring into younger people kind of figure out what is the way that we can do that well and how can we learn from each other and grow along the way. So, we'll definitely have more to share about that in the coming weeks.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I like to sort of end with this question. It's a little broad, but you can do with it what you will. I'd love to know what inspires you most.
One thing that is maybe super cliched, but really inspires me every single day is the joy that I get from my dog. So
Yes,
just, just seeing the
we
way
love
that
our dogs.
every single day when I come home or when I wake up or see him, he's just happy and joyful and excited. And I think a lot of times, maybe our problems in life would seem a little less if we could take on that mentality of just being joyful and grateful for what we have in the moment and being able to kind of embrace that. So I wish I could be more like Bo.
Be more like Bo. I love that. Someone should make like a little sticker or something. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like animals are, I mean, I have a dog, as you know, and animals are just so healing for us. And they don't see us as a CEO or anything. They're like, you're just my mom. You're my friend. So I love that. Oh, well, thank you so much, friend, for just coming on and sharing more of who you are and your story. How can people find out more about you and Light Speaks Loudest? Where can they go?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And yes, anyone who's interested in learning more, you're welcome to visit our website. It's lightspeaksloudest.com, or you can find me on Instagram. I tend to be most active on that social media platform, and it's just at Light Speaks Loudest.
Amazing. Amazing. You heard it here first. Thank you, friend.
Thanks.
Bye.